Let me do edifying words like this morning. Good job, guys, answering those questions. Terrible shots. I don't want to be in any kind of scuffle with any of you except for Betty and Leica.
That's right.
Right? Because I've heard side of a barn and, other images were coming up. Couldn't hit the side of.
Couldn't hit the side of a church.
All right, we're in Psalm 23. Psalm 23, and tonight we'll be looking at verse number 5. But we'll read the whole psalm, and then we're going to focus on verse number 5. So Psalm 23 and verse number 5. All right, and we're also going to have a little bit of fun in the lesson time. So don't put your thinking caps away. Okay, I know you're in church. But it's okay to think in church. All right, Psalm 23, pick it up in verse number 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Here's our verse. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Verse 6, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And so we're going to focus on verse number 5. And really that first statement, thou preparest a place for, or a table for me. The Lord is a Lord of, what's that word that I'm looking for? He's the Lord of, not preparation, that's a good word, sovereignty. He is a sovereign God. And so that means he knows everything. He knows what's going to happen in the future. He knows what's going to happen in a couple of minutes. He knew that Betty and Leica were going to be the only ones to hit ducks. He knew that David was going to wipe out the table because he shot everything. The cup, and the cup knocked down everything else. He knew that was going to happen. And he knew that you were going to be able to answer those questions or not answer those questions. Right? He knows what's going to happen tomorrow, and none of us do. But sometimes what we rely on is we rely on luck. Right? Yeah. Now, in American culture, we'll go with Philippine culture too, what are some symbols of luck?
Four-leaf clover.
All right, a four-leaf clover. So we're going to Ireland. Yeah. A rabbit's foot. All right, how many of you older guys have hung a rabbit's foot on the rearview mirror of your car? Right? Or you kept one in your pocket. Now, a rabbit's foot's supposed to bring you luck. I don't know how that works because it wasn't good for the rabbit. All right, what else is a symbol of luck? Okay, a charm. A charm. What? Oh, you have a cat.
Yeah, they have a small cat, and then it's waving like this.
He's waving his paw like that. I think I've seen that cat. All right, what does the cat do for you?
It's like prosperity.
Okay, prosperity, so that would be a luck. So that's Chinese culture.
What's a lucky penny? Right.
Oh, lucky penny. Right, you pick it up, put it in your shoe.
I don't know.
No, that's the thing. You pick it up, put it in your shoe, and it brings you luck all day. Right? Yeah. Lucky penny. Anything else? Knock on wood. Hope it happens. Knock on wood. Okay, sometimes we do this. All right, what do you not walk under? Because it brings you bad luck. All right, don't walk under a ladder. What about walks in front of you?
Don't let a
A black cat walk in front of you. How about something that breaks your mother's back?
Step on a crack.
Don't step on a crack. Right, or break your mother's back. So you see, we have in our culture all of these different symbols, and in other cultures they have different symbols. What else in the Far Eastern culture brings you luck?
The number 8. 8 is big.
Okay, the number 8.
Yeah.
What else? Rub the Buddha's belly.
Oh, okay, sure.
Right? Rub the Buddha's belly. That brings you luck. And so there's all of these symbols. Now, specifically in Ireland, what is it that they kiss?
The Blimey Stone.
No, not the Blimey Stone.
I thought that was. Okay.
You're close, but it's not Blimey.
Oh,
Blarney.
Blarney.
The Blarney Stone, right? Which I don't know what it is, but there's one, and it's supposed to bring you luck. Now, if you chase the rainbow, what's at the end of the rainbow?
Pot of gold.
Right, a pot of gold. Who put the pot of gold there?
A leprechaun.
A leprechaun, right? And so you see, we have all these things of luck. And, I've got a couple more here. So you've named a whole bunch of them. Charms are good, but there's crystals. All right, so if you go to Sedona, there's vortexes. And if you use a crystal in a vortex, that really helps you. Sending good vibes or good thoughts.
What in the world?
Okay, or send positivity into the universe.
There's another great.
Right, I'm going to send positivity into, and New Agers are all about that.
Yeah.
They're going to make the world a better place by thinking good things about the place.
The harmonic.
Right, but this morning, what did we hear about the heart? Yeah, it's deceitful and wicked, so can it ever send good positivity into the universe? Sorry. All right, and whose shadow do we look for in the wintertime? What's his name?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Punxsutawney Phil.
Punxsutawney Phil. We look for his shadow, and if he sees his shadow, it's like 6 weeks more of winter. If he doesn't, then it's like 6 weeks less of winter.
Yeah, I never understood that.
All right, so, and I've seen Punxsutawney Phil. We were actually traveling and going through Punxsutawney. And we're actually there for the viewing of Phil seeing his shadow, and that's a fat little groundhog. He's like this big because all year, all he is in an enclosure so you can go by and visit him and see him, but all he does is lay there and eat. He's a fat little thing. And then they let him out that one day, and what's the name of the place? It's Gobbler's Knob or something. Do you guys remember? I think it's something close to that, but I can't remember. But anyways, we have all of these things. Right now, is Phil right? How often is Punxsutawney Phil right?
Never.
I think if you look at the stats, he's right like 1 time out of 50. All right, so he looks at his shadow 50 times, and he's right once. Knocking on wood, what does that ever do for you? Well, it hurts my knuckles. Right? How many black cats have really passed your life? Yeah, a lot. Right? Oh, what's another thing that you're not supposed to do that brings you 7 years of bad luck?
Break a mirror.
Break a mirror. Right? You break a mirror, 7 years bad luck. All of that, right? All of that is what the world looks at as luck. Right? Now, God is not a God of luck. God is a sovereign God. I mentioned that. He knows what's going to happen. And as a matter of fact, it's happening because He's allowing it to happen. And so let's take a look in Genesis chapter 22, and we're going to see one example of the sovereignty of God. So His foreknowledge, knowing what was going to happen, and making a provision, so being sovereign, knowing what was going to be there, right? So we were talking about the sacrifice of Isaac, right? Is one of the questions. Well, in Genesis 22, starting in verse 1, we're going to see that account, and we're going to see the sovereignty of God and not the luck of Abraham. and not the luck of Isaac. And not something that just circumstantially happened either. So verse number 1 in Genesis 22, and it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham. That word tempt isn't tempt the evil, it's testing or trial. And said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him therefore a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place afar off, and Abraham said to his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together, and they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called out unto him from heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, and said, To this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. And so here we have this whole account. And throughout this account, the Lord is in charge. And he knows what's going to happen. So first of all, he says, Take thy son, thine only son, whom thou lovest. By the way, Isaac is a type of Christ. All right? He's the only begotten son of Abraham. The promised son, Jesus is the promised son, the only begotten son of Mary. Okay? And then, offer him therefore a burnt offering. Now, you got to remember, this is a burnt offering. This isn't just the shedding of blood offering. This is, he kills him with the knife, he slits his throat with the knife, he drains his blood out of him, then he lights the altar on fire and burns up the body. All right, that's what we're talking about. And look at the faith of Abraham. Oh, by the way, look at the mountain too. Right, in the land of Moriah. Mount Moriah is the same mountain that the temple is built on. And right next to that is the mountain, or the Mount of Olives, that the Lord was crucified on, or Calvary is right next to Mount Moriah. So even the place typifies Christ.
And the 3 days, too.
And Abraham rose up early in the morning. After God told him that, you're going to kill your son, you're going to make him a burnt offering. And it says he rose up early in the morning. It doesn't say anything about Abraham didn't sleep. It doesn't say that he tossed and turned. It doesn't say that he argued with God. What it does say is Abraham had such a faith in God that God was going to raise him from the dead, that he rose up early in the morning just to be obedient to God. And so he rose up early in the morning, and he saddled his ass, and he grabbed the wood. The wood is the type of the cross. He laid it upon Isaac, right? They made Jesus carry his cross, so they laid the wood on Jesus. You see all the types? Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to the young man, listen to what he said, Abide ye here, The lad and I are going to go and worship, and we're going to come back. Again, you see the faith of Abraham. Because if God said it, God was going to do it. And Abraham knew that Isaac was the son of promise. He knew that through Isaac was going to be peoples like the sand of the sea and the stars of the sky. He remembered the promises. So he knew through Isaac all of those things were going to come to pass because he was the promised son. So he took the wood of the burnt offering, laid it upon Isaac, and took the fire in his hand and a knife. And they both went together, and Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. By the way, do you speak like that to your children? Right? Alan comes up to you, My father. And you say to him, Here I am, my son. Right? Or does he say dad and you say what? Right? Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for a burnt offering? Here's another prophecy. And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb. Now, put the emphasis on different words. Right? I'd like to put emphasis on different words in this phrase. He said, my son, God will provide himself a lamb. Meaning that God is going to provide himself, Jesus Christ, as the lamb. Then he said, God will provide himself a lamb. I don't have to worry about it. And God will provide himself a lamb. And boy, we talk about Old Testament prophecies now. Right? And so we just emphasize different words, and we get God, and we get God in that. No matter how you emphasize it. God will provide himself a lamb. It's up to God. He's going to take care of it. God will provide himself a lamb. That means God's going to come down and die for us. Or for, in this case, Isaac. And God will provide himself a lamb. Just talking about the coming references to the Lamb of God. Right? John the Baptist says, Behold, the Lamb of God, which cometh to remove the sins of the world. Right? So much in that verse. And in verse 9, they came to the place which God had told them of, which is Mount Moriah, where the temple is built and where Calvary is. And Abraham built an altar there and laid wood in order and bound Isaac. And by the way, the willingness of Isaac. Now, Isaac at this time is about 16. He's a teenager. How many teenagers do you know are going to be willing to be tied up? Right? Especially by Dad, who's carrying a knife and has a fire, and he just built an altar. It's like, Dad! Right? He's backing up.
What happened to that other guy?
And so you see the willingness of Isaac, which again is a type of Christ, who was willing to go to the cross, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. Lord, Father, may this cup pass from me, but if not, thy will be done. You see the willingness, the type here, the willingness of Isaac and the willingness of Jesus Christ. He was willing to be bound. Oh, by the way, he had to walk over to the altar because he's 16 and Dad's 100 and something. Because Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born, so he's 116. He's not going to heft up a teenager and say, get up on the altar. He bound his son and he says, Isaac, I need you to lay down. We see the willingness of Isaac. Verse 10, Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. A lot of people have this image, that he was going like this and he was going to plunge it into his heart. That's the wrong image. When they did burnt sacrifices, he stretched out his arm and he grabbed the knife to take it up to to Isaac to slit his throat, just like they would do with the animal sacrifices. So he stretched forth his arm, grabbed the knife. He went up to Isaac and he grabbed his head and he put the knife like this. This is the picture. And he's about to do this. Verse 11. The angel of the Lord, by the way, that reference is to Jesus Christ, called out unto him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here am I. He's like, woo! I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't know when it was going to happen. I didn't know if I actually had to slit his throat. I didn't know if I actually had to burn his body. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I knew we were going to come out of this. He said, here am I. And Jesus says, lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son. Again, the provision here, the sovereignty of God. God knew what Abraham was going to do. That's why he tempted him, tested him. God knew that he was going to take Isaac, and he knew Isaac was going to be willing. He knew all of that was going to happen. And he knew the moment that Abraham was going to move his hand. And just before he moved his hand, knowing it, he stopped him.
What did Isaac know?
Isaac didn't know a thing.
I mean, wasn't he thinking a little bit?
I'm sure he was, but this whole account is about Abraham. Right? Isaac doesn't come into the picture. All right, so he says, lay not thine hand. I know that you're going to do it. Verse number 13. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. Didn't that just by circumstance happen that a ram was there?
And the thicket to catch the ram.
Right, and the thicket to catch the ram. And Abraham lifted up his eyes to see it. It's not like he heard it.
Right.
And so I think God had the ram sneak up and hook his horns into the thicket. He said, because I got a job for you.
Yep.
Did God ever have a job for other animals?
Yeah.
Wasn't there a fish that had a coin in his mouth that swam up to the coast and Peter went out there and plucked the coin out of his mouth?
Yep.
Boy, that just was circumstance, wasn't it? And oh, by the way, there's going to be a colt tied up over there, and there's going to be a guy.
Right.
And the guy's going to say, what are you doing loosing the colt? And Jesus told the disciples to say, the Lord has use of the colt. And the guy's going to be like, okay.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, why didn't you say so in the first place? Somebody goes to get into my truck and they say to me, the Lord told me to use your truck. I'm going to be like, nope.
You gotta be out in a minute.
Right? Because God didn't tell me you were going to use my truck. But do you see the sovereignty of God? He had that ram go up there. I believe he had the ram go up there silently because Abraham had to look up and hook his horns in the thicket because God told the ram to do that. So that God did provide himself a lamb. Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. Boy, that's a picture of Barabbas, is it not?
Yeah.
Because on the cross, on the inscription on the cross where Pilate wrote down, this is Jesus, King of the Jews, right, in the 3 different languages, on the backside of that was Barabbas's name. Murderer, thief, seditious. That was on the backside, and Pilate flipped that thing over. In place of Barabbas, they put Jesus' name. In place of Isaac is this ram. Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah Jireh. God will provide. That's what the Jehovah Jireh means. God will provide. Did he not provide himself a lamb? In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. God will provide himself a lamb. And so we see the sovereignty of God in this account. And is there not a lot? Now, some people would read that and say, boy, Isaac got lucky. Abraham got lucky. By the way, Sarah got lucky.
Because she had a child.
This is her son. Now, it may not have fared too good for Abraham when he got back. So what'd you guys do? Oh, we just walked a couple of days and went over to this mountain. Oh, I tied up Isaac and threw him on the altar, and I was about to kill him. You know, God said no. What? I can only imagine that may have been a conversation. It may not have been. Maybe Abraham told Sarah that night, look, God told me to do this, and God is faithful, and this is the promised son, and I've got to go through with it, but we're both going to come back. Right? All through this, Abraham's saying, we're both coming back.
He had to know. Right?
He did know.
He had to know.
He had faith enough to know, to trust in the promises of God. Now, let's go back to Psalm 23 and verse number 5. Thou preparest the table before me. You know what the Lord has done for us? He's prepared the way. He's got our life mapped out, planned out. Right? Now, some of us have rough lives. Some of us have had rough lives. Some of us not so rough. Some of us a little rougher than others, but still rough. Right? Difficulties. But the Lord had you mapped out to get you to this place.
That's right.
Now, it's amazing how all of us ended up in Tucson. In 2020, today, 2026, on this night, it's just circumstance that all of us came together for that. Right? It's just circumstance that the Lord brought you to our church.
That's right.
It's just happenstance that I came here. Right? I didn't even want to come to Tucson. You guys heard that story. I didn't even want to come. So just happenstance that I came, opened up the church, and then you guys came. And that just happened because, you know, that's what happens. No, the Lord had it mapped out because you needed me and I needed you. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
The style that I teach with, you needed. God made me like I am for you. And then God made you like you are for me. And He brought us together. Right? Not by circumstance, just like in this account. So, you know, suck it up, Buttercup. If I say some rough things, suck it up. And we do. And by the way, when you say rough things back to me, you know what I'm doing? Sucking it up. Right? All right, let's look at one last place and then I'll be done. Colossians chapter 1. Colossians chapter 1, again, looking at the sovereignty of God, that He is in control of everything. Colossians chapter 1, and we'll start in verse number 12. Colossians chapter number 1 and verse number 12. It says this, Colossians 1, starting in verse 12, giving thanks unto the Father which had made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light. So God made it so that we could be saints.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Saint Moses, Saint David, Saint Betty, Saint Jay, Saint Alan, Saint Pastor, not Saint Leica. Saint Leica. Right? He made us partakers of the inheritance of the saints, so we're all saints.
Yes, we are.
But because of Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Verse 13, who hath delivered us from the power of darkness and hath translated us into the kingdom of His dear Son. So we were dead in sins. Now we're in life evermore. Verse number 14, in whom we have redemption through His blood, even the forgiveness of sins. We just saw the picture of that in the Old Testament. Right? Who is the image of the invisible God, The firstborn of every creature. By the way, he's the firstborn because he's the first one that has ever raised himself from the dead. Right? Other people have been risen from the dead, but he's the first that rose himself from the dead. Okay? God didn't raise him from the dead because he's God. Lazarus didn't raise him from the dead. John the Baptist didn't come back from the dead to raise him from the dead. He rose himself from the dead. So when it talks about him being the firstborn, that's what it's talking about. He's the first one that ever raised himself from the dead. Right? The firstborn of every creature. For by him were all things created that are in heaven, that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him, and look at this, for him. You know, all the stuff that happens in our life is to bring glory to him. The reason why we have our lives is to bring glory to him. We saw that this morning with the way we're supposed to speak, so that men will glorify the Father. And so we're to glorify the Father with our bodies. Verse 17, he is before all things, and by him all things consist. He is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. There's a little bit better phraseology of that firstborn. Okay? So he's the firstborn from the dead. He's not the first one risen from the dead, but he's the first one that raised himself from the dead. That in all things he might have the preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him should all fullness dwell. And having made peace through the blood of his cross, by him to reconcile all things unto himself. By him, I say, whether they be things in heaven, in earth, or things in heaven. So what's going to give glory to God? Everything. Right? Everything. You remember when he was speaking to the Pharisees or somebody when they were saying Hosanna to the highest, and they were like, why are you letting this happen? And he said, well, if they don't say it, the rocks are going to say it. Right? And in the book of Revelation, everything will bow its knee, of things on earth, above the earth, and under the earth. Right? They're going to bow the knee and glorify Jesus Christ. I believe that's in Revelation chapter 5. And so we see that he has the preeminence, but he is also sovereign, and the reason why he's able to be sovereign is because he's the creator. He is God. And he knows the end from the beginning. He already knows how your life is going to end. He knows when it's going to end. How many of you guys know the day you're going to die?
No idea.
You might not make it through this service. And I'm winding down, and it's coming soon, right? You're going to have a heart attack when I stop. You're going to be like, ah, he stopped.
That's not funny.
Right? Or you might live 100 more years.
Amen. Or we might be raptured, right?
Right? Or we might be raptured. Well, it's kind of past. It's kind of past time. I think it's going to happen on a Sunday morning in Jerusalem. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you what Sunday because that's stupid.
Right.
But I believe it's going to happen on a Sunday morning in Jerusalem.
That'd be pretty cool.
Right? Now, why would I say Sunday morning in Jerusalem?
Because this is the Lord's day.
Well, isn't every day that ends with day the Lord's day?
Oh, yeah.
So why would I say Sunday at sunrise?
Because that's when he resurrected.
Because he resurrected. So my belief, and in Jerusalem, right? So it'll be Saturday night around 7 p.m. here,
Yeah.
right? Because some people have asked me, how come on Easter we don't do sunrise services? And I'm like, number one, we're not in Jerusalem. And if we were going to do a sunrise service, we're going to do it in Jerusalem time. And so Saturday night at 7, we'll have a sunrise service. Because then it'll be sunrise in Jerusalem. Because it doesn't matter what happens in Tucson. It all matters what happens in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, I tell you,
Okay? So if we ever have a sunrise service, it will be Saturday night at 7. Because I'm only concerned about what happens in Jerusalem. So when I watch the news and Jerusalem is in it, I'm paying attention. If Russia's in it, I'm kind of paying attention because that's Gog and Magog. And Meshach. Right? And so if it's like Japan, they're not in prophecy. Even in America, America's not in prophecy. Africa's not in prophecy unless it's Egypt. Right? But I'm really concerned about what happens with Jerusalem and Israel. And so when I see that they're in a conflict now, I'm like, oh boy, here we come. I'm listening to the trumpet music, right? The shofar. I'm not listening to the brass trumpet. I'm listening to, because that's the kind of horn it's going to be. Right? So all of that to say God knows when that's going to happen, but we don't.
You believe America's going to be taken out?
America is not in prophecy.
Right, but you believe there's a good chance that the way things are going, that we could be taken out?
So two things. Either America is destroyed from without or it's destroyed from within.
Right.
But it's not going to be a world power. And see, the way we were going before Trump is we were becoming nationalist. Right? We were bringing everything inside our borders. Right? And so we were doing this. Now Trump has been he's all about America, making America great again and all of that stuff, but he's also about reaching out to other countries and trading and trying to get them to do their part. And so he's kind of been an olive branch, but as soon as he's gone, I think we're going to be sucking back into that isolation mentality, and we're not on the scene. We're not on the scene. And so, but God knows that's going to happen because we read about it in the scriptures. Right? We read about it in the prophecies of the Old Testament. We read about it in the book of Revelation. Only one time in all of the prophecies is an eagle even mentioned. And some people think that's America. But that's a stretch, that passage. So I don't believe that America's going to be anywhere around.
What passage?
I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
But there's one that references an eagle. Yeah.
And they say that's America.
That's what some people want to reach out, stretch and say. But America's not in it.
Right.
Now, we might be one of the 10 horns that we were talking about. We might be one of the 10 horns and one of the 2 that drop off. But we're not in the picture. It's all about Israel. And so that's why I say when things happen in Israel, my eyes are, my ears are perking up and I'm watching. But again, Christ knows all of that. And we're talking about the sovereignty of God. And so he knows. So back in Psalm 23 and verse 5, when it says, thou preparest the table before me, that's the sovereignty of God. He knows. He knows. And so can we have faith in God? Right? If we had the faith the size of a grain of a mustard seed, which one of our questions, the smallest seed that becomes the greatest tree. If we had the size of that mustard seed, faith the size of that mustard seed, we could say to this mountain, be thou removed. And it's gone. But we have the faith of Abraham, don't we? He was tested. And he knew God would, even if he had to kill Isaac, slit his throat, and burn his body, Abraham had faith that God was going to raise up those ashes. And Isaac was going to come back. He had that kind of faith. And that's the kind of faith that you and I can have if we avail ourselves of it. But we have a sovereign God who takes care of everything. All right, questions, comments?
I've got one.
Yes, sir.